I know.
We're live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest Thriving Talent LinkedIn Live, joined by my colleague, Eleanor Neville. Say hello.
Hello,
And
hello.
myself, Natalie Wilkins. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. And today we're going to be exploring 5 reasons why women are leaving your company and what you can do about it. But before we jump into all of that, let's do a very quick intro for those who are new to our LinkedIn Lives and new to Thriving Talent. Would you like to go first, Eleanor?
Sure. So my name is on the screen, as are my pronouns. At Thriving Talent, I'm head of client accounts, and I'm one of our DI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants and facilitators, especially on all topics. We'll be talking about that a bit today, kind of inclusive leadership, unconscious bias, a little bit of strategy work for those organizations, really getting into the what, why, and how, like Natalie mentioned before. I'm based just outside of Zurich, Switzerland. That's where I'm coming from today. It's pouring with rain. How about you, Natalie?
Thanks. Well, my pronouns are on the screen too. I'm dialing in from a little mountain town called Lezin. It's pouring it down too. I think the whole of Switzerland is wet today. I'm sure other parts of Europe too. And as we probably do on all of our virtual workshops and trainings, please do say hello to us in the chat. If you're here, say hi, introduce yourself. This is always a great opportunity also to be more visible and network with other people who are connected and passionate about what we're talking about. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Thriving Talent, and I wear many, many hats, including the training and the consulting work that Eleanor just mentioned. And it's our real pleasure today to present to you a summary of some of the findings that we've presented in a recent white paper called 5 Reasons Why Women Are Leaving Your Company and What You Can Do About It. Hopefully one of my colleagues who's joined us live will be adding a link to that white paper in the chat. So do check that out if you haven't grabbed a copy already. And if you do want to get a copy from our website, then here's the URL link to go directly to it. So let's get into it, Eleanor. Where should we start?
Absolutely. Well, first question, I think. Natalie, what is the number one reason or most common reason why women leave companies?
Yes, that's a very good question, and I think the answer will depend on who you're asking. We read a lot of research around this, don't we, Eleanor? And research that's not just relevant to Switzerland, but around the world. And if I reflect on the studies that have been carried out in recent years and compare it to previous years, it doesn't actually change that much. I would say the top 3 reasons that we consistently see in these reports are they're leaving because of work-life balance and that the organization culture doesn't support that. They're leaving because there's a lack of advancement opportunities. So they're being overlooked and overseen and not really being considered for promotions and for advancement. And I think maybe another reason is because of the culture. And this isn't just affecting women. I think it affects anyone of any age, of any gender. When the culture is toxic and it's not really supportive of you and your needs, and it doesn't give you those opportunities, it doesn't inspire you to be connected and feel like you're working with a purpose, you're going to leave. So I would summarize those being the top 3. And then those will shift to this number 1 spot depending on who's doing the research. Is there anything you'd add to that, Eleanor?
No, I think that I agree. So I think we'd say there isn't one or kind of the most common reason, right? It's probably a combination, even usually, of the ones that you mentioned. And I think it is an important point to say this doesn't only affect women, and it often over proportionally does affect women, right? Which is why we have that focus today.
Yes, exactly. And I think maybe linked to the question you just asked, one that I receive from a lot of people at the events and at the trainings that we attend. If you were to maybe summarize, what do you think the main reason that women leave their companies is that is overlooked by companies or by leaders?
I think the one that's overlooked or ignored a little bit too often probably is the whole topic of toxic cultures, harassment, discriminatory behaviors, right? It is, I mean, it's a super uncomfortable topic on all levels. But I think if we look at the data, and you said, we try and, follow research and data, and the data is just shocking on how often discrimination, and it doesn't have to be harassment, in terms of physical kind of harassment or even going as far as rape or anything like that, but how often it happens, these kind of microaggressions. That's a huge topic in some of the reports about women in the workplace. I know that's always a big topic in the Lean In and McKinsey reports that's just come out recently, right? How often are kind of comments made that are inappropriate, jokes that aren't really funny, and that all combines into that feeling of not being welcome, not being part of a culture, not enjoying coming to work, right? You were saying before, Natalie. And we have done recently, I know one of actually the other co-CEO, right, Debbie said she's a bit shocked actually how many requests we're also getting for more work around respectful workplaces, creating that kind of speak up culture. And I like the way Essie framed it, Essie from our team as well, right? She said, well, actually, she's glad in the sense that we're getting more requests because it does show that organizations are becoming aware that more work needs to be done and that the situation as it is not acceptable, and there needs to be a change. So I think it still is the most overlooked of the reasons, and we are seeing movement that more organizations are addressing the topic, thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in recent news reports from the UK, this is a hot topic for the government and the legislation that's going to be updated around the systems and processes and guidelines that companies share and communicate with their employees around how to report and deal with these types of situations, because it's not getting any better, as you said. And there are groups who are affected by this more than others. And I think if we imagine when your company is in an industry where there's a dominant group, let's say it's more men than women, we also talk about this insider-outsider group effect, and how when you're not part of that majority, you're more likely to be on the receiving side of those microaggressions. And helping people understand those dynamics, understand what's okay and what's not okay, and how to address that as a victim or as a bystander, as a witness is really important.
And the legislation is the same for Switzerland, right? In this legislative period, there's been a lot of discussion around no means no, for example, and becoming more precise on what's covered by when we talk about sexualized violence in the workplace and how that's interpreted.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting more clear and transparent about that is so important. And so that's one of the most overlooked. But what do you think for companies or leaders would be the easiest to address?
I think, in my view, one of the reasons, and this is a topic we talk about a lot, right? It's the whole topic of work-life balance, career and caring, that kind of integration part. And I think it's one of the easiest to address because it affects everyone, right? All of us have moments that matter, that, change it, personal changes in life, whether it's becoming a parent, buying a house, going on a big sabbatical, whether it's a health topic, whether it's something in your friends, family, or in the community that you're involved in around you, right? It happens to all of us. So I think, and having that awareness that there is more to life than work, that there are these kind of moments that impact your career as well, and how you are at work. That's an really easy one to pick up the conversation on. Would you agree, or what do you think, Leslie?
Absolutely. I think, I think there's been for a long time in many cultures a trend where you don't bring your personal life to work or you don't talk about it. You keep that hidden. But I think especially since COVID, as we saw, and the wave of change around flex work that came after that, you can't really hide that part of your life anymore. Because if you're working hybrid or remote working, you're typically working from your home and you've got your whole other part of your life around you. And I think especially as we see the generation changes in the workplace, the expectation is that it's okay to talk about that and it's okay to get support and understanding around those moments that matter.
Yeah.
Into the
And I
day
think that
we're
really leads
human.
up to the health topic that we have as well, right? In
Yeah.
the 5 reasons. That's probably not necessarily the easiest one to address, right? Because it is super personal. It's probably, you know, taking those conversations to a level that we're really not used to having in the workplace, where it's not just about parenthood, but where parenthood is maybe also extended into the full journey of fertility or infertility, and you know, how does that impact your career as well? But that would be our dream, right, Natalie? That's all of those kind of somewhat taboo topics nowadays are also part of that conversation about integrating caring and career.
Yeah. And you don't need a big policy or expensive benefits that cost the company money to do this. It could be as simple as you cultivate a culture and some leadership behaviors where you make it safe and okay to bring this stuff up at work when you have different needs, different moments that matter, and that those needs are accommodated as best possible. And when you can do that, you get so much in return from your employees. So much more commitment and loyalty, and I think performance. So it's something to consider. I think a low-hanging fruit for many organizations. And then maybe if we then go to the reverse of that, which reason that women leave do you think are the most difficult to address?
Well, we talked already about kind of the toxic culture and everything around respectful workplaces, right? I think that's difficult to address. I think it's super important to address that one, and it's really difficult, mainly because historically it hasn't maybe been addressed as much as it should have been. And the other one is the whole topic of biases, especially in processes around performance, retention, promotion. Oh, you can pick almost any process, any people process, right? Because I think, and that's again, because it's, I mean, they're called unconscious biases for a reason, right? They're kind of hidden. They've been hidden in those processes for many, many years as the processes have developed due to the history of the company, right? And taking that step back and saying, actually, we need to look at this with fresh eyes. We need to become more structured. We need to have clearer criteria for processes. We need to move away from making decisions based on gut feeling. And then not only looking at the processes, but also saying that to your leaders, right? Saying to the leaders, actually, you need to understand how bias is affecting you and how that means it's also affecting processes, and through that also the people who are affected by decisions. And you said at the beginning, right, Natalie, one of the biggest reasons is lack of opportunity to advance for many women, right? And that can be a consequence of not having debiased your processes around, especially around promotion, progression within an
I can
organization.
maybe share an example from an anonymous example, but we, as a company, we support many companies with their working parent programs. So helping my training managers on how to have those conversations, how to be aware of those biases, but also supporting the parents coming back to work to manage those transitions, to stay motivated, to stay with the companies, because there's such a big cliff, especially for women following parental leave. Many leave, I'd say up to 30% leave after the first 2 years of returning to work. And why is that? It's for all the reasons that we just talked about and what's shared in the white paper. And one example is, we have a highly professional woman with high, just as much ambition as her male colleagues and her other female colleagues. She's back at work, having had a baby and finished her maternity leave. And her boss has relegated her to the back office with admin roles. And I'm sure his intentions behind that are not in any way, it's not coming from a place of discrimination. It's probably come a place of bias. We often hear and know these stories where people feel like they need to protect or care for their people who are in these stages of life. It's called benevolence bias, but it's really dangerous because you're making an assumption about what the other person wants and needs. And she doesn't want or need that. She wants to be recognized. She wants to have visible projects. She wants to be promoted. She has desires and ambitions to progress in the company. And now she feels like she's been demoted and ignored. And that's a real danger there. And that's a huge red flag that this person's going to be looking for other opportunities and leaving your company.
Yeah.
And I think that's a practical example of those biases. So, but maybe touching on what you said around processes, Eleanor, and being more clear about how you can debias the process and make things more fair and equitable. That takes time to make sure that people are educated and made aware and have the skills to be objective and fair with their decisions. Do you have any practical suggestions around how companies can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things we use working with a couple of our clients as well is the equity assessment tool. You can Google that, and then hopefully you'll end up on our website, or look it up on our website as well, which is a tool. There we go. Which is a tool where you can pick out parts of the process, or whichever processes you want to focus on, and challenge yourself to think about, okay, are they really equitable, these parts of the process? So it's a self-assessment tool that organizations that we work with use as an assessment and as a conversation starter, right? It's really great to use it. You can use it within your HR team. You can use it with a group of business leaders to have that conversation about what are we doing well and where is there room for improvement still in our processes, from recruitment to pay to progression. There are all sorts of different parts of the process that you can look out using this tool, more or less accompanied by us, depending on how comfortable you are using this tool and facilitating those kind of conversations. So that's probably on where I'd start. I think lots of companies they know a lot of what we're saying, right? There's not a knowledge gap necessarily, but sometimes it's that action gap. Okay, where do we start? And I think this kind of tool can really help an organization have that conversation about, actually, where do we want to start? Where do we really see this potential? And ideally, as we always say, right, overlaying it a little bit with some data, right? If you can look at your diversity data, inclusion data, if you have that as well, because you can measure inclusion. Had a conversation about that yesterday, whether you can or can't. So you definitely can. And seeing if that shows you maybe even parts of where in the organization women are dropping off, that you mentioned before.
Yeah, maybe some examples of what you could be measuring. So you could pull out your data of leavers, voluntary leavers over the last, give it a period, and then filter that by gender. And if you can, and if you are tracking people who have children, typically you do because they're claiming AVS benefits in Switzerland, but sometimes other benefits in other countries, you can quickly build a profile of those leavers who became parents. And don't just limit to women. You can also look at what's happening, what the trend is for men and any other gender. And then just to see if that actual turnover rate is higher than the average turnover rate for the organization, or compare it to other groups such as male versus female, just to see, is there a statistical interesting data point to be aware of, to essentially raise a red flag that this could be an issue. And typically, as I said, it's happening more acutely within the first 2 years of them returning, if not immediately after they've completed their parental leave. Because if they don't feel the organization is supportive of their work-life balance, or they don't feel that they'll be taken seriously and have a chance to grow their career, they might just, as Debbie likes to say, silently quit. They opt out, they checked out. So that's one area to start. Another one is, for example, if you're doing performance management processes and you have got a performance management system in place, is to get the departments to look at the statistical average of how women are rated versus men. And that often comes up with a very interesting gap of that average rating, because you can't really defend that all our women on average are performing 1 point below men. That's a statistical concern that you need to pick up on, and then it sheds a light that there might be some performance bias implicating those ratings. And as we know, Eleanor, women tend to get far more criticism and negative feedback compared to men, because the standards they're often held against just are totally outnumber for what other majority groups are being held against in terms of standards and expectations. So those are the areas that you can look into with your HR team. It's not difficult. It's a few hours work, that's all. So yeah, hope that's practical advice.
Yeah,
helpful.
And the encouragement is to start with what you got, right? I know not all organizations have, state-of-the-art kind of HR data systems. You maybe for legislative reasons can't ask for all of the data you'd like to ask for, but you definitely have data that you can use, right? Even if it's, like Natalie was saying, because of first indicators in different moments of the process as well. And pulling in information from exit interviews and information from your engagement surveys, right? Any source that you have, and seeing how that creates kind of a bigger narrative around the reasons why women are leaving your company specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we say it time and time again, but this is not a nice to have anymore. This is not, oh, this is the right thing to do anymore. This is a business imperative. If you're not showing real progress, real commitment around how you're making your workplace more inclusive, where everyone has the chance to thrive and succeed, not only is it going to affect, your stock market, the share price, the investors are going to be asking questions. There's so much pressure coming now from legislators and investor groups on this. But also if you're in the service industry and you're bidding for RFPs, these are really big, meaty parts of an RFP that you're responding to, that you have to show evidence that you're doing something seriously about this, especially if you're bidding for work with governments and public sector organizations. So you mentioned earlier when we were talking about work-life balance being one of the easier things that you could address. And you mentioned something about some taboo topics and how you can destigmatize certain things in the workplace. Could we maybe double click on that, Eleanor? And could you share a little bit, what are the kinds of topics that are more difficult for women to bring up at the workplace?
Well, I think if we look at the parenthood journey, moving away from parenthood journey or conversations in an organization starting at the point for a woman when your bump becomes visible, to say it that way, right? Where the moment is where you can't kind of get away with not telling your colleagues. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Parenthood starts so much earlier than that. It starts with how easy is it to get pregnant at all? Then it goes into questions of fertility. Do you need to also get support on that? There's also, of course, termination of pregnancies, voluntary or involuntary termination. That's a whole we don't talk about, right? I mean, the number of people, of women who lose babies anywhere in the process is early on really high, later on less high, but it's a huge number of women who've had that experience as part of their becoming a parent journey, right? But no, we don't talk about that enough probably as a society, and let alone within organizations. But it can really affect someone's ability to be fully engaged and present physically, but also mentally at work. So I think for me, the big narrative there is just that whole extending the journey, and it continues afterwards as well, right? It continues with, then you have a young child. I mean, you know all about this, right? Going to daycare, bringing all the illnesses home that it picks up at daycare, and how flexible are you for both parents to be able to, to deal with that then. And then your children go through life experiences as well, health, illness, changing schools, new friends, everything that sort of happens there as well. And then it happens maybe multiple times, right? If you have multiple children, you sort of loop through the whole experience multiple times. So I think for me, it's really just extending that narrative from I don't know, in organizations now, it's maybe focused on kind of what would you say, sort of 9-month period, or maybe a year maximum kind of period that we sort of talk about, right? From when you announce it to the organization to when you're kind of back at work, and then you're considered to be kind of, okay, you're just kind of back at work and life goes on, to covering 18 years plus, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a difficult one, I think, for many women and men to bring to work. And then when we think about other forms of identity, not every family who's starting a family is heterosexual. We have the rainbow constellation of families, and some of these families don't have the means to get pregnant. They have to go through surrogacy, they have to go through adoption, and as you said, destigmatizing those challenging journeys, making it safe to bring that to work and get support from work makes such a difference for people. And we're very proud members of an association here in Switzerland called Family Forward, which stands for destigmatizing and supporting not only individuals but workplaces to be able to bring this topic to work. If you want to find out more about that, then do visit their website. Yes, they're really planning some great work around how to better support companies to be on that journey with their employees, shoulder to shoulder. Are there any other taboo topics that you think affect women more in the workplace?
Well, money, I suppose, is I don't know whether that's an international taboo topic, but in Switzerland, considering we're known for having money and for having big banks, actually we don't talk about it a lot. So the whole topic also of pay, of bonuses, of also just the costs of things, the cost, to connect it to the other topic, cost of childcare, etc. And having more, firstly, talking about it more, I think that would make a huge difference if we all knew a little bit more about what we earned mutually, kind of, but also having, an understanding of how that works and what's fair and what's acceptable. And I know I was at the premiere of the most recent Gender Intelligence Report by Advance and the University of St. Gallen last week, and they showed the bonus gap, right? The gender bonus gap. And it's almost 50, around 50-ish%, I think, which, yes, of course, it has to do with, people being in different positions, in different industries, etc. But it shouldn't be that way, right? There's no reason why it is that way. And talking about some of those financial implications more, I think, would be amazing.
Yeah. And it has such a knock-on effect on women's life, even beyond their career. So many couples now are getting divorced, and often the woman is worse for that, because if she's taken time out to raise the family or to reduce her hours at work, she doesn't have the same kind of pension as a partner does, as a spouse does. And then, that makes a lot of challenges for her. Now, I think we've got a couple of minutes left.
I was just having a look at the comments.
Yeah,
just to check if there are some people saying hello, which we missed out on from before. So hello back again from sunny Spain. Just a little bit jealous about that. That's okay. And Kiki also mentioning, which I was thinking about that when you mentioned it before, so that we're hearing a little bit again on companies cutting back on flex work, on home office, etc. at the moment, right? And I think we can't highlight often enough how much of a mistake that is, and how much, especially if you are interested in retention of all sorts of talent, how much that could really backfire for you as an organization, right? There are no questions. We have how much do we have left? 45 seconds left. So if someone did want to have a question or something that we should respond to, do write a comment. Now, otherwise, while I'm keeping an eye on that, Natalie, what would your sort of final words of encouragement be for organizations, or wake up words, if you want to use it like that?
Yeah, I think it's This is a lot easier to address when the top leadership takes it seriously, starting from the board. If this is mandated top down, it just makes the whole change journey so much more easier and a lot less resistance, especially when resources and budgets and people are put towards this. So important. And I know we feel it this year more than any other year. And I'm sure there's other service providers in a similar area of work on this topic to us who are feeling it too. There's been so many budget cuts, but from headcount to budgets to support the change that needs to be managed around improving workplace cultures and reaching gender diversity. So I think really ask yourself if that short-term view is going to work out for you in the end. It's not about making sure that we survive as a company. That's not it at all. But this topic is bigger than thriving talent. This topic is about the future of women, not only in the workplace, but in society. And for the next generation, I don't want to wait another 50 years to have gender parity. This is just really taking. So you can see I get a little bit annoyed, frustrated.
Well, I did say to give a wake up call, right? So I think we're at time. So thank you everyone who joined. If you are wondering about what you could do, what your company could do on this, do approach us. We promise you don't need a huge budget to do this. There are the small things that you can do that make a big difference to solve some of Natalie's rage about the future as well. So, feel free to get in touch. And thank you so much for being here live or for listening if you're listening to the recording after today.
Right. We'll see you next time.
See you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Eleanor, bye.